Okay, welcome to the newest edition of the Popcast podcast. I'm John Croce from ActionFigureKing.com, and this is my co-host
Esteban from I am Esteban TV.
Today we're going to be talking about a classic property from pop culture, the Universal Monsters, which some of you guys may not be as familiar with as I am. I know these are a little older. Esteban, this is something.
Yes.
I mean, are you familiar with these to some degree?
Well, to some degree I am, because, I always got to respect the classics and understand, where we came from.
Right.
But I also feel like, obviously we'll probably get into it, but I think they're going to make a new run for it to come back, I guess.
Right. There's actually a lot going on with this that if you don't know who these characters are,
you will know.
will. They're going to be resurfacing. So, let's go back to the beginning,
Well, explain to people so they know what are Universal Monsters.
Universal Monsters. Okay, so a lot like Marvel and, Disney specifically, Disney made a name for themselves by doing movies that weren't properties that they owned. For example, Snow White, Cinderella, right? Alice in Wonderland. When people think of these classic animation films, they think of Disney because Disney's
and Disney created
right.
them.
They made them so
People think of that
iconic.
sense.
They gave them the look, the style that the clothing and stuff that they wore in these animated pieces. It was the same thing with the Universal Monsters. By no means does Universal own Dracula or own Frankenstein. But their films or the companies that they came to own, the companies that created them originally, maybe Universal picked these companies up. These are the films that made that genre what it is.
So I guess you can say horror films?
Horror films, right. The original horror films. And through time, we'll talk about it, they mutated. They started in this sense of true horror, where they took these novels, for instance, Dracula and Frankenstein,
Wolfman,
and they created what very close to what the author intended. The films were so successful that they went into this kind of era similar to what we're seeing right now with the superhero genre, where it was just
basically you saw a bunch of horror movies of Dracula and
exactly
just nonstop. Basically the same thing that's going on with the whole entire Marvel. I guess I'll call it the Marvel Renaissance or whatever.
That's what it is. I mean, that's exactly. I've felt this way for a long time. That this genre of superhero films is going to run its course because.
So does everything. Everything runs its course.
Right. I mean, as it starts to lose steam, you're going to see. I mean, DC, for whatever reason, is making a stupid mistake and jumping right into it with bringing the whole Justice League together. But you're going to see more of these crossovers as Marvel starts to lose steam. You'll probably see Spider-Man meet the X-Men and the Avengers and stuff. Because that's how they kind of build interest in it again. Well, the Universal Monsters did exactly the same thing. I mean, there was this whole slew of films once the originals came out. They did Bride of Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein, and then they had Frankenstein meets the werewolf, and Abbott and Costello meet the mummy, and all these crossovers. And it just went on for 25, 35 years, where they were incredibly successful. So, you have the original characters, which were Frankenstein, and I want to point out, do you know the big mistake with Frankenstein?
I want to say
right in the name itself.
Oh, Frankenstein. It's the doctor's name. It's not really the monster's
exactly.
name.
I mean,
I know a lot of people get that confused. I know that for a fact.
And from a pop culture standpoint, we can't change it at this point. When we say Frankenstein, we think of the monster, but technically,
we don't think of the.
It's Dr. Frankenstein.
So did the monster have?
He's called the monster. He's called Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster. I mean, technically, that's really who he is, but.
Or Freddie Munster.
So, we've screwed that up, but. I don't want to see it changed. I don't want to see this politically correct thing, but I just want to point out that technically he is the Frankenstein monster, or the monster of Frankenstein, and Dr. Frankenstein is the character who created him.
I know a lot of people don't know that, which is kind of funny though.
And it is just a proper name in Germany, I guess. It's Frankenstein. You could have that for a name.
Well,
it'd be kind of crazy
you know
too.
what happens? It's kind of like the whole entire Zelda and Link thing,
Right.
Right. Everyone says Zelda, but automatically people think of the guy, obviously Link instead, when the really name is Link, But then obviously the game is named Zelda for the princess,
right.
So it's kind of like one of those things.
Right. Well, and I heard somebody mention this recently about Captain Marvel. Everybody calls him Shazam now.
Yeah.
And that, of course, goes back to the thing with Marvel and DC. When DC acquired Captain Marvel, well, Marvel had now been doing a Captain Marvel comic book, so things have always been pretty good between Marvel and DC. I think Marvel allowed them to continue to use the name, but they would call the book something else. So in the 70s, you saw the book called The Power of Shazam. But when I was a kid, I always thought that the character was Shazam. We always referred to him as Shazam. It wasn't until I was a little older that I realized, hey, he's not Shazam. He's Captain Marvel. Shazam is what he says. So, yeah, I mean, you have the same situation with Frankenstein's name. But the core group of Universal monsters is probably
Frankenstein, the monster,
right?
The Wolfman,
the mummy.
The mummy. This is the monster. I think the monster from the Black Lagoon.
The creature from the Black Lagoon, which is sometimes referred to just as the creature. Now, at that point, you were starting to get into a different era. This is where the monster genre started to figuratively and literally mutate. Where we started off with these monsters, right? The Wolfman transforms from a man into a wolf. The mummy is this character, this king who was wrapped up and his body is decayed and reanimated now.
Do you think we'll get a movie like the Avengers with the Universal monsters?
I'm going to get to that. There is a lot of talk about this, oddly enough. But so towards the late 50s and early 60s now, you started seeing these monsters change. And another one of, I think that would probably start with the creature from the Black Lagoon. But more typically, there's this Metaluna mutant who you may not know the name, but I'm sure you're familiar with this character. It's this blue...
Swamp Thing?
No, this is this Universal monster. He's got this oversized blue head, looks kind of like brains on the top.
Oh no, I don't think I could put a name on him.
If you look on the Action Figure King site and you look at the pop figures, they're coming out with the Universal monsters, and this is one of them. So this is this era where there was this shift from traditional horror to more of science fiction, and I think what was going on in society at the time. We've touched on this before. How these films try to be relevant to what's happening in society.
Yeah, to try, pop culture always tries to mimic what's going on in that today's day and age.
Right. So now you know what spawned Godzilla, correct?
Yeah, the whole entire World War II, World War I things going on.
The bombs and with Japan and so there was this fear of these type of weapons and nuclear war and radiation and stuff, and you'll see this shift through the 60s in the type of monsters that we see, and specifically with Godzilla. You look at everything Godzilla fights, it's always these giant mutated creatures, right? Even if it's just Mothra, who is this mutated moth. So there was this fear at the time of this type of energy and what it was going to do to people. And this is where you'll see, again, we shift from the traditional monsters to these more kind of science fiction type mutated monsters. So the Universal monsters has grown over the years, and some of these properties they definitely own. I mean, they've created the monsters specifically. But again, a lot of them they don't. Like Disney, they just kind of they made it famous.
Well, my question was because Wolfman and Dracula, those are characters that have been around for centuries. Mm-hmm. So who really owns the rights to Dracula?
There's and I'm so bad with terminology. There is a it's open. It's when a property isn't owned by a company and it sits after it's after a certain amount of time that the author dies. it becomes public domain.
Yeah.
So you
that's the word,
or
yeah.
I can get together now. We can make a movie about Count Dracula. We can make a movie about Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
We can make a movie about Alice in Wonderland or Cinderella. Disney, Universal can't stop you because they don't own it.
Because I was gonna say, because these are like fairy tales that have been around
Right.
for like centuries.
Right, so that's the term, is public domain. What they can stop you from is if you were to make an Alice in Wonderland film and the character resembled their version of the character too much, or the entire story. So if you had, Alice in a blue dress with a white apron and stuff and blonde hair, they can say you're directly copying what we did. Now, how much of that was lifted from the original narrative, I'm not sure. But I'm just trying to make a point here in that if you deliberately copy the specifics of what their character is known for, then you're going to get hit with a lawsuit. But you can certainly turn around and make your own Frankenstein movie, and they can't stop you.
Okay.
So this is kind of the importance for Universal to keep these characters in the limelight, because growing up in the 70s and 80s, what I saw was constantly this barrage of these old black and white films of these characters. And, of course, now these films are very dated.
Yeah, I know. It takes special people to appreciate the black and white films,
Yeah, I mean, they're dated not by any fault of their own. I mean, I see, when you look at these films, the makeup and stuff, to me, will always be good. Like the Planet, like the Planet of the Apes.
The Planet of the Apes. Yes, I was gonna say, even though I'm more of a newer generation, I've seen these films, and I still amazed by what they were working with at that time period, and actually look pretty decent.
Yeah,
look pretty good. It actually looks kind of better than some movies that come out today.
Right.
I don't even go as far as saying that.
Right. Well, and we've talked a little about this, and I know you tend to disagree. I feel that I would love to see these movies redone and stay true to what's been established, in the sense the actors that played these characters, especially in the original films, made these roles. So, Boris Karloff, God, their names are going to slip my mind right now. But when you think of these characters, you think of that look. I have these sideshow figures from like 1998 or 1999, and these were some of the first sideshow figures.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jesus, I didn't know Sideshow was out for that long.
Yeah, these were actually distributed in a different way. I mean, they were distributed through Toys R Us, and these are like 7-8-inch figures. They're all plastic. They're not highly articulated, but they are an incredible resemblance to the actors. And one of the ones we haven't mentioned, Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yes. That's why I forgot about that guy.
So these look like, they were lifted right out of the films. You've probably seen these over the years because they've kept them out there where they've done repaints, they've done black and white versions and stuff. They're just incredible figures. So these actors who played these characters really made Lon Chaney. He was one of the actors. They were so great in these roles. I would love to see them use CGI to recreate the character so that it looks like the character from the original film, and then bring it up to speed with the storytelling and the level of gore so that it remains scary and stuff. But
that's the thing. I'm definitely gonna disagree with you on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll be able to keep it ties to the original look.
The look?
And the look. Yes, I will definitely go with the look.
Why?
Because I think it's the look is outdated. Don't get me wrong, I love the look.
Specifically, you're talking about the characters?
Yes, how they look, how Frankenstein looks, how the Mummy looks. I think because we've seen movies. They've tried to come out with movies recently with I think it's called I Am Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've seen the trailer. I haven't seen it, so I think it probably wasn't good anyway.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't talk about it.
It didn't do very well, I don't think.
Yeah, but you saw the trailer. The guy wasn't Frankenstein or the monster. He was just a normal-looking guy.
Right.
And then I think they're coming out with a new Dracula movie And for me, he doesn't even look like Dracula. You know,
And
kind of look like a Twilight star.
so that's what I'm
know?
saying. You think that's the way to go, or you think it's being done that way and it's not good?
Well, my thing is because we always forget. We always gotta look at the bigger picture. You know, for the bigger audience. Are the audience, like the general audience, gonna like the original creatures and how they look?
I think that's not the issue. I think it's how you do the film. If you do it with modern film processes, so if you look at these old films, one of the things that really dates them is back then, movie making was approached very differently. It was approached more like you were watching a play. So you have a lot of these static shots where the camera is just there and it stays on that one shot for 2, 3, 5 minutes. And the actors are kind of moving back and forth across the screen. Very different than today where you have a lot of quick cuts and a lot of different angles and stuff. So I think if you took the character design of these really iconic characters, right? The same way Superman's uniform is iconic, Batman's uniform is iconic.
Yeah.
And now change it into a modern film. I would even keep the era the same. So where Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, I believe it's in the late 1800s, maybe even earlier than that, but the film didn't come out until 1930s or so. If you set it in the late 1800s, when at the time it was supposed to be done, but use modern movie making techniques, don't try to make it look like an old film. That would be stupid. And then bring up the level of gore, show, because now we have this technology not just to do the makeup well, but to go beyond. We can actually show Dr. Frankenstein, kind of taking these body parts and assembling this monster, and we can do more with it. That can add to the gore. Have Frankenstein... Frankenstein is a lot like the Hulk. He's just kind of this misunderstood character. He never asked for this to happen to him.
Well, that's the thing I was gonna say. I think they're gonna, like, if they did make a movie. I don't think they're gonna make a gory movie with Universal monsters. I don't think that's gonna happen.
You don't think so?
No, because think about it. A lot of these movies, they're trying to get the general audience into it. The pop figures, you've seen a lot of pop figures coming out for them.
Yeah, but we've talked about this. I mean, look at how
Select figures.
Right, so Select is definitely more adult, but we've talked about this with Walking Dead. I find it so odd that they do these pop figures because, it is kind of an adult gory show, and then they go and make these cutesy little figures. They're going to cross market this stuff regardless of the genre. I mean, look at the horror, even the horror films from the 80s, the pop figures they do. Jason, right? They do Friday the 13th, and that's kind of weird. Again, because I don't see 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds really liking that genre, but there definitely are. I know some 10-year-olds and some 12-year-olds who said they've seen those movies, and I find that a little surprising. So I think I don't know what their plans are, but what I should touch on is that there is plans for this whole Universal Monsters reboot. And
well, I figured. I've been seeing so much merchandise for it for the past year or so.
Right.
I figured something was in the works.
And this is the power of Universal Monsters. So again, they don't own many of these properties specifically. Metaluna Mutant they probably do own because I believe they created that character for the movie. But all these other ones, Werewolf, Mummy, Dracula, they have no rights to it, but they have rights to the designs that they've created. So they license those out to all these companies. I have some rubber figures of the Universal Monsters. They have the Universal Monsters logo now. Again, I have these Sideshow Collectibles figures. I believe Hasbro has done some Universal Monsters. Even going back to...
Mini-Mites. I've seen Mini-Mites.
Yep.
Recently, past couple years.
Right, so this is what they're doing. They're licensing out the Universal's Monsters look to all these different companies, and there is this older group that knows these characters well. What they need to do is get broader exposure now to keep these properties alive. And the plan is, it looks like they want to copy what Marvel's done with the Avengers universe. they don't just want to reboot this, but they want to have these links between the movies.
Yeah. Well, that's what's hot right now.
Right.
The links between the movies.
Well, and in a lot of cases, you scratch your head and say, well, is that really necessary to link things? But as you were just saying, with trying to get certain people into the seats, if you can make a connection and pull somebody else into the theater or buy the products, that's all they care about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What we do is we cross our fingers and hope that they do this in a really creative, interesting way that you're like, yeah, this is cool. I don't know, how they've done it before, obviously, where they've had these monsters cross over, and some of the movies border on comical because, it's kind of hard to unify a bunch of
the Wolfman and the mummy hanging out on screen.
Right. I mean, I think this is why years ago Marvel said, you know what, let's get the Hulk off the Avengers. It doesn't really make sense. How do you contain this guy who turns into this wild character? How do you keep him on a team of superheroes? It becomes a little crazy, especially when you're thinking about doing it with Wolfman, the Mummy, Frankenstein. Maybe Dracula might say, yeah, I can benefit from this, but I don't know how these other kind of rampaging guys would say, yeah, I'm in.
I just want to see an Avenger movie with the Universal monsters.
The Avengers versus the Universal. Oh, you mean take that? Well, we could have the Avengers versus the Universal monsters. Now that'd be cool.
There you go, and that's why they got together.
So they definitely are talking about having these links between the films and doing a reboot. As of right now, it's in very early stages, so I don't know if they're going to follow what I'm saying, which I would just love it if we saw these traditional looking monsters in these modern films. For me, that's what's going to get me in the theater. That's what's going to get my money.
Well, I guess the approach they could take, I could see if the monsters get together because people want to kill them,
or even if it was a little abstract,
if they band together, I guess, in a sense.
But even if it's not so deliberately like they're banding together, but they're fighting the same cause, maybe unwittingly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe Dracula is trying to leverage it because obviously he has a good mind. The Phantom of the Opera might be a little, intelligent. So maybe they kind of feel like we need to leverage these other guys into this to stay alive.
Exactly. I think that's probably the best way to go at it, I guess, if they want to make it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of approaches you can take. You can make it like an action film. I can definitely see an action film aspect to it.
Yeah.
Or like you said, it's like a straight horror film.
I'm not so gung ho about this kind of bringing them all together. I think what I would love to see again is the original designs done in a modern film. Of course, where they're outright saying we're following this model. We want to do a reboot and we're going to do this kind of universe where they're all existing in the same place. That's what it's going to lead up to. But hopefully that's 25 years down the road by the time they get to that point. Hopefully they have a lot of great success just with the initial films. I think that the merchandising, as you've mentioned, has proven that these universal designs are kind of standing the test of time. This is what people like. This is what people remember. I mean, if you put out a Dracula figure and you put out a Universal Monsters Dracula figure, I'm pretty sure that it's a good bet that the Universal Monsters is well going to outsell the generic Dracula.
Oh, that's different. That's because it's iconic, It's in pop culture,
Right, but why wouldn't you try to leverage that into the movies? I mean, to me, it only makes sense.
I feel because the person that buys the Universal Monster Dracula is already making a conscious decision. I like Dracula.
Right.
So I'm going to buy this toy.
Okay, so let's go back to the 1930s, right? His name just popped into my head, and I know you know this name, Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Dracula. He made that role, his look, his voice, the way he played the character. So now either CGI it or find yourself a character, an actor who looks like this guy and can play it the same way, dress him the same way. Why would you clean the slate and start from scratch and say, let's see if we can roll the dice here and get this to work? part of this that works. Why not start there? If I were making the film, I would hire the best casting director, and I say, look, find me Bela Lugosi. I want you to find me the Bela Lugosi of today. I want somebody who can play this the same way as him. And then take that aspect, which you've already got a built-in audience for. It's worked in the past. It can work again. And for this reason, I feel set it in that time period, whether it's 1900, 1870, whatever period it's supposed to be. And with Dracula, I mean, it can move through eras. It can start there, and it can move to modern day.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's going to have to be modernized at a point.
Set in the modern time, you mean?
No, like the character, the look. I feel like they even did that with all the superhero characters, like Superman. He was never in his traditional bright blue, bright red suit.
And
spandex.
You know I hate that.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying that's like it's still gonna look like Dracula, but they're gonna update it.
What would you update? I mean, he's wearing clothes that fit the time period. If he's coming from the 1850s or the early 1900s, he's dressed appropriately for that time period. This is a kind of a problem with pop culture in that people want to rewrite history and change it. You hear, you see movies nowadays that are supposed to be period pieces, and then the actors are speaking with modern, terms and stuff.
That's my argument. It's still gonna look like it's take place during that time period, but it's just gonna look more modernized. Like for example, Captain America, the first film. Mm-hmm. That looked really modern, even though you could tell it took place during that time period.
Oh, I disagree with you. I think the first film really looked like that period. I think
No, I thought it looked like that period, but they gave a dash of that. It looks like our time, like a little bit.
Do you think
not too much?
But do you think that was like the weapons and stuff? Like they were supposed to have some sort of high tech weapons, so like were almost like lasers and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that sense, yeah, because people are so screwed up with that. Like, I don't think a lot of people would be able to appreciate a film that was really set in the 1940s and if there was no technology.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it's still gonna look like that time period, but it's gonna be a little sprinkled of of our modern age, like how Gotham was.
I'm gonna push
like the first.
I'm gonna push back because I think that this is what's destroying our societies. That we keep catering to the unimaginative. We keep catering to the people who are just their brains are just so numb from being polluted by all this crap that's out there.
No, I definitely agree. Trust me, I'm on your side, but
yeah.
I guess I'm more accepting of for what it is, and I know that's how it's gonna play out.
Yeah,
and then I just accept them, like, oh, at the end of the day, it's to make money, so they gotta do that in order to get the general audience butts in the seats.
And I totally agree. It's all a corporation. It's all about making money. But I do feel that somewhere down the road, someone, whether it's with the Universal Monsters or another property, maybe it'll be Marvel, somebody's going to break the mold, and somebody's going to say, I'm going against this, pop culture, what they need, and I'm going to do this the way it should be done. And they're going to make $1 billion, and then everybody's going to model it after that. They're going to say, oh, wait a minute, I want my version of that now,
Yeah.
Because it happens with everything, right? When Batman was successful in 1989, then everybody wanted their superhero film.
And dark and gritty.
Right, and you saw this whole slew of films came out that were in that genre, and they didn't always work. I mean, look at the old Flash TV show, which over time has grown fond and to some people, but at the time it did not work at all because what they did was they modeled it after the Batman movie, and the Flash just is not Batman. So for me, it was like this is stupid. He had the muscled suit. They just modeled it too closely to the Batman movie, so it didn't really work. But this is what happens when somebody proves that there's a way to do something and stay true to it, and you don't have to do what the masses want because the masses aren't necessarily right.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah. So there is a plan to relaunch these films, and that's why you're seeing how this is going. If it's because of, like you're saying, there's so much merchandise out there, and Universal is saying that we've got something here, we should do it, or whether they just planning on relaunching these things anyway, which in my mind is a no-brainer. I mean, why would you let it die?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. 'Cause there is a market for there. Like I said, I'm on I'm on the internet. I'm on a lot of forums, a lot of trading websites with figures.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised actually younger, not even like older, like people, but a lot of younger generation are asking, "Oh, does anybody know where I can get this figure of Dracula or this figure of Frankenstein?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that the younger generation, and they're in college, are asking for these figures.
Well, think about it. I mean, we're coming up on we're coming up on Halloween now, right? So
yeah,
you mentioned Twilight and how I think most of us just hate that stuff. But with Halloween, when you go on hayrides and you go to haunted houses and stuff, you don't see guys dressed up like these guys from Twilight. I mean, would you be scared of that? No, I think I was back in college again. What you see is guys dressed like traditional Dracula and the werewolf and stuff, because that is visually scary. Like if you saw some real hairy guy with fangs and he was hunched over and he had long claws, you'd be scared, man. You'd be like, I'm not going to take a chance here. I don't know if that's somebody in a costume or that's legit, but I'm not going to get too close to that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the imagery. That's the imagery that will, it's probably going to be around forever, because it touches something inside of us that's truly scary. A human morphing into an animal, or a human with fangs who drinks blood, or a creature that's been reassembled from dead body parts. I mean, that's scary stuff, man. And it has been done so many times. I don't know if you remember, there was a Robert De Niro film where he played Frankenstein.
Oh, I actually did not. I must have been really old then, right?
It's probably 30 years old now. Maybe 25 years old. If you look it up, I think it did really, really badly.
Yeah, 'cause I've never heard of that movie, so I'm guessing it did really bad.
It didn't follow what I'm saying at all. It was just they followed the concept, where I think he was brought back from the dead, but he didn't look like the traditional Frankenstein. And of course, Dracula's been done to death. There was Dracula from the 70s, Dracula from the 60s and stuff, and they were all a little different. They all kind of reeked of those time periods. But what do we always come back to? We always come back to the original, because the original has something about it. And one other element that I might say they should keep to some degree in the film, or something that kind of feels like it, is this black and white element. And I know you're probably going to disagree with me on that as well.
Well, for me, it's really hard, I feel, especially now in our day and age, to make a film about an evil bad guy,
mm-hmm.
and that you're happy at the end that when he dies.
I think with a lot of these films,
like for me, that's really hard. Especially like I know it's off topic, but a lot of people are saying they want to make a Boba Fett movie.
mm-hmm.
But for me, how would that work?
Well, it works in the sense, especially when you look at these monsters. I think when you tell a good story, when you make a good film.
Because in my sense, Dracula is a bad guy, right?
Yeah, but see, when you do it correctly, you convey a feeling of sympathy for these characters. Nobody sees themselves as the bad guy. Nobody thinks I'm the screwed up one. I'm doing the wrong thing, or I guess that would be the exception. I mean, yeah. I don't know that there's people out there who say, yeah, I'm the F up. I'm the one that's doing the wrong thing, and I'm going to continue to do the wrong thing. I think especially with these type of characters who are like the Hulk. Frankenstein, he's totally a victim here. He didn't ask for this to be done to him. So as bad as he is, he could even be worse and make worse mistakes. And for the most part, we're going to forgive him because he didn't do this to himself. Same thing with the Wolfman. I mean, here's a guy, this Jekyll and Hyde type. He's not in control of this, so you can't really hold him responsible for his actions. And even
well, those characters will make sense, because you kind of remind me of what's that show? The horror movie on FX. Oh, American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch The Coven?
No.
Oh, you didn't watch Coven. So I'll explain it real quick. So in the series, there's a boy that died, and the witches did the same thing like a Frankenstein,
Right.
and they put him back together with body parts from the accident.
Okay.
So he basically was Frankenstein in the series,
Right.
and he did bad things, but he didn't understand.
Right.
So I
it wasn't
guess
his fault.
yeah, but I guess you could, like you said, you could build a sympathy for the character.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people love that character, even
And-
though he was like cracking people's necks open and stuff, you know?
Right, and it's the tragedy of it. It's you know it's not going to end well. I mean, how can it end well? If the character lives, then more people are going to die, and if the character dies, it's a tragedy because he was a victim as well. You can even extend this to some degree to Dracula. I mean,
Well, that's the thing. If you kill him in the first film, wouldn't that be just game over? No more films, you know?
right. So, I mean, you know,
So that's the really, I feel that's the really tricky part.
well,
Unless,
this is where we don't need to follow the original book because it has been done before. So elaborate on it. You know, do some tweaks to it. Don't change it completely so I don't even notice that I'm watching Frankenstein, the Wolfman, or Dracula. But
Yeah.
change it in a way that it's good, that I'm shocked that, oh, I didn't see that coming. That was a really shocking ending. That
Yeah.
type of thing, you know?
yeah, I'm just, like, for me, it's really delicate with Universal Monsters because it might turn out to be cheesy how Freddy and Jason are now.
Yeah, they can't go that route. I
That's
mean-
that's what I'm just a little worried about because
Well-
you know everyone kill Jason and Freddy every film, and they magically happen to come back in the next film, whatever film they make next. You know?
Well, right, and I think with Freddy it works better because this is on this plane of existence where it's dreams anyway, so
Yeah.
anything's possible. But with Jason, it's like, well, what's with this guy? I mean, how much drugs are in this guy's system that he doesn't realize he should be dead at this point? And
Yeah,
and,
they like he like explodes, he throw him into space, and like guy keeps coming back. You know?
right. So I mean, at some point, then you're changing the story and you're moving it into, well, he was never human. There was some mystical power at work or whatever it is, and then people feel almost slighted because it's like, wait a minute, this wasn't what I thought I was watching for 13 films or whatever
Yeah,
it's been.
exactly. And that's what I'm just worried about with Universal Monsters because I feel it's a very delicate situation.
Well, this is where hiring good writers, you know, comes into play. I mean,
No, it's true. I believe that Superman was a very delicate situation, and people loved it, even though I didn't like it. But
right,
it was like a very popular, and people loved, and people were happy how it came out.
right.
So I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's very delicate. You know.
Well, I think it's important for the producers to not always just. I mean, it really is delicate because, right, you look at what's going on with the Fantastic Four right now and how many people hate it.
Oh my god! I know. There's not even a trailer. There's not even like screenshots. There's really nothing about it, and everyone already doesn't want to see the film.
Well, and the thing is this, you know, where I'm saying sometimes at some point somebody's going to do something so phenomenal and they're going to break, you know, the stereotype and say, well, I'm not doing what pop culture wants. And then that's going to become the model. The contrast to that is where you have a guy like this who I feel, you know, I'm talking about the director of the Fantastic Four, doesn't understand the property at all and he's just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
And this is a case where they've given control over and we're pretty much guaranteed that we're going to see a piece of garbage because it's not going to resemble the original property at all.
Yeah, and actually, I was actually a fan of the original Fantastic Four, like with Chris Evans and Jessica Biel. I thought those were actually good films.
It's funny. I've seen them. They've played them a lot this past year since all this talk came up about the new one. And in rewatching them, I never thought they were terrible. I never thought they were great. But I see more of their merits now. I think what they suffer from mostly is that the director wasn't on par with like the soundtrack sounds a little dated. It was more traditional than modern and stuff.
I
And
mean, it could have been better done, but I felt like it was really well
wasn't
written.
bad. Yeah.
It wasn't bad. I feel like for a Fantastic Four movie, it was good.
And in that case, I know that the director has complained, saying that he didn't have enough control, that he wanted to do things differently, and he didn't have enough control. So there is a delicate balancing act when you're making a movie of having the right talent, and it's not just the director, it's the actors, it's the entire staff, it's all the people that work on it, lighting and editing and special effects, and I think that the producers overall should really just stay the hell out of it, because
Yeah.
these are the people that are basically financing the film, and of course everybody wants to say they had their mark on something, but
Yeah, that's what happens a lot.
I think a good manager, no matter what, whether it's a manager in an office place or a manager of a film, you know what your role is, and you know why you're hiring people. If you're hiring a director because they direct incredible films, if you're hiring a creative group because they do incredible special effects or whatever it is, let them do what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're hiring a market research group, if that's the route you're going, and you want to secure feedback through social media to find out what do people think of this, let them do what they're doing, and hire the right marketing group. Don't just hire some schlep that's, a friend of mine, and they're going to give us the research. Make sure that your research is valid. Too many times they change things just because, like you're saying, that's what the masses want to see.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter what the masses want to see if you're going to produce a piece of garbage that's not going to make you money. Ultimately, producers want to make money. They don't care if they made a piece of crap or if they made a great film. All they want to know is that they got the money back. And
exactly.
I think that the big money is always going to come in. These properties have been around for a long time. Marvel Comics, DC Comics, the Universal Monsters, staying true to what was done and growing it. If you're going to make it modern, do it in the modern world, whatever you're going to change in that sense, but stay true to what the essence of the character
Yes,
is.
I was about to say. That's actually I was about to say. Stay true to the essence of the character. That I don't mind. That I hope for. But I'm just saying they're going to make tweaks in here and there so the general public will like it, Yeah. It's like with the Deadpool movie. Obviously, Deadpool is supposed to be rated R character. He's a rated R character.
Yeah.
But they're making him a PG-13 character.
See, so right there, I understand your point exactly. That should be an R film. End of story. They just want to sell more tickets.
Exactly, and get kids into Deadpool so they can sell costumes and this and that, whatever, That's why they're making it PG-13, which I understand because they're trying to make money.
Deadpool should probably have a fair amount of gore, but even if you take the gore out of the mix and it's based just on language, it has to be an R film. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
There's no two ways about it.
The shenanigans this guy says in the comics I've read are insane.
Yeah,
I mean, what he does to enemies or even good guys, whatever, it's insane. I played the video game, which is gory. I read the new comics that have come out with Deadpool kills Marvel Universe and Deadpool kills Deadpool. It says right on the cover, not meant for little kids,
Yeah, I mean, weren't the Terminator films rated R? At least the first two.
Yes, I think the first one was definitely was. I
mean,
I remember the first one was pretty gory.
And the rating system may have been different then, but if you watch those films back, because I've tried to watch them with my sons and stuff, and the only thing is there's a few curses here and there. I don't even think there's any nudity in them.
Oh, I'll give you the perfect example: RoboCop.
Yep.
How gory is RoboCop 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
And then they made the new one. I finally got around to seeing the new one. I knew it was going to be bad. I mean, in a sense, in its own movie, it was pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah.
But if I had to compare it to RoboCop, it wasn't RoboCop.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think the new RoboCop wasn't even rated R. I think it was PG-13, the same thing.
Yeah, this is the mistake, and I blame this on the producers again, because the producers are coming in and they're telling the director, listen, we need a PG film. And it can't work that way. Yeah. If the franchise is traditionally in whatever rating, it should stay there.
Yeah, I felt like the new RoboCop was more of an action film than how other RoboCop movies were,
Right.
Just straight up, guy just comes in and just gore fest everywhere,
Right.
Just cleaning up the streets,
Mm-hmm. So for me, I mean, I love the Universal Monsters, and part of that love stems from this time of year. Halloween.
Oh yeah, of course.
The
only time of year you get to dress up. Why? I wish there's more opportunities for me to dress up during the year.
Well, you can't wear a mask in public.
Yeah, exactly. So I gotta take advantage. I always take advantage this month. I always buy a couple, at least 3-4 costumes I can wear.
My older son's getting to an age now where he's a little big for these kind of store-bought costumes. I kind of imagine you to be a little ominous looking in a costume with a mask.
Well, for me, honestly, I tried to find costumes that are like, I guess, what's the word? Off the radar, off the grid, conventional costumes, I guess. Like, for example, I just ordered a Ted costume, a bear costume. Yeah, and I'm going to dress him up differently. I'm going to get a top hat for him and a little white scarf and a little cane,
Yeah.
So I try to think out the box, like which characters I could dress would be actually funny and be entertaining for people,
Right, so you customize something that you can buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I get around it,
I've been known to make a few of my own costumes, but that doesn't always go so well. I'm not a seamstress by any means. I started off customizing dolls, and
for me, I have no skills in that. I just try to buy different parts from different costumes and just mess it up together,
Well, my point was that with like with dolls, you're always using spandex, right? So
yeah,
spandex has a lot of give, so you don't need to be a seamstress. It doesn't need to fit perfectly because it's going to stretch out. But when you take that up to human proportions now, and I made my daughter's Starfire outfit last year, and damn, it was a little too tight. I mean, she wore it, but when she was leaving for school, I'm like, because she was only 6 years old, I'm like, wow, that's a little too tight. I was afraid she was actually going to start complaining that no blood circulation. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little more adventurous than you. I do try to stitch some stuff together, but yeah, it's good to always be a little different, because you don't want to walk into a room and be one of 50, whoever, Superman or Frankenstein.
Exactly. Everyone's gonna be Batman. Everyone's gonna be Superman.
Yeah.
I remember I went to Comic-Con like 2 years ago, and me and my girlfriend dressed up as Adventure Time, as Jake and...
Yeah.
Well, I was Jake and she was Fiona, like obviously the girl version of Finn.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was the only Jake at Comic-Con.
Really?
Yeah, and there was honestly like thousands and thousands of Finns.
Really?
Yeah, I was so surprised. And then, of course, because I'm Jake and there's thousands and thousands of Finns... Right. Those thousands of Finns wanted to take pictures with me.
Right, so you couldn't get anything done.
I swear to God, it was every 5 seconds, someone coming up to me, can I take a picture with you? Can I take a picture with you? Like, I didn't mind it. I liked it, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, I expected to be more Jakes, too, because Jake is a popular character.
But don't you prefer to be on that side? Would you rather be the unique one?
Yes, I do agree. And I guess Jake was probably a harder costume to come by, I guess, or make.
Yeah.
Than Finn, because Finn could just put on a blue shirt and find a white hat somewhere. Yeah. A sword. So
yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a resurgence of the Universal monsters. Probably not for this Halloween, but they are coming back.
I definitely agree. Like I said, I've been seeing more merchandise for them, the pop figures,
yeah,
toys, like select figures. So there's definitely a fan base, and if they can grow it, I think there will definitely be films down the road. Yeah,
and I think the exposure comes from they got a lot of different companies working on this stuff. They license, it's all in the fine print. This company's doing whatever, 6 scale. This company's doing miniature oversized heads and that type of thing. So there is a lot of Universal Monsters products out there right now. And again, to go back to the core, we're talking about Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Werewolf, The Mummy, the Metaluna Monster, Phantom of the Opera,
Creature.
The Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's the one I was trying to think of. That's the core. And if you see success, and I think we're going to see some degree of success over the next few years, they're going to start going back to all those 1950s, 1960s sci-fi films that were pumped out, and you're going to see a resurgence of all these characters. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that the younger generation appreciates what's going on. And if you're not familiar with Universal Monsters, this is a good time to go back and check some of them out. And
please watch the original black and white films.
Yeah, I'm not talking about The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, which is a good film. It's a good film, but this is not the one we're talking about. We're talking about, you got to go way back to like 1940s, 1930s.
I totally forgot about that film.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big franchise, and it was good. Good effects and stuff, but not my mummy. It's not the mummy I know. That's not my mummy, man. All right, so for the podcast, I'm John Croce from ActionFigureKing.com. Please check out the site, and you can find the Universal Monsters on the site. And this is my co-host,
Esteban from I Am Esteban TV. Check me out on Instagram.
If you haven't photographed any monsters yet, you got to get them up there soon.
Oh yes, I think that's definitely my next goal. Probably get some Marvel Select monsters. So
yep. And there you go. There goes the crossover, right? Because Marvel doesn't own these monsters either, but they're able to put them out there because it's what do we call it? Public domain.
Yep.
All right, we'll be back real soon with another episode of the podcast. Check it out.
Adios.